The last thing we got for today, boys and girls, is the nucleic acids. And nucleic acids, it's a biomolecule. It's one of the major ones. It's not a macronutrient, though. So we'll talk about it here, and we'll sprinkle a little bit in chapter 6, I believe, when we start to introduce a few things with how cells communicate with one another. But from a metabolism standpoint, cellular respiration standpoint, we're not going to be talking about it. Nucleic acids. Are comprised of a multitude of various different things. We have a 5-carbon ring structure. We have a nitrogenous base. We have a phosphate group. They help to make these complex structures, which I assume you've heard of before, DNA and RNA. With DNA, we have guanine, cytosine, thymine, and adenine. Those are our nitrogenous bases. You should probably remember that. Whoops. Okay. It has a sugar, deoxyribose. And it comes in a helical shape. Okay. Double-stranded. Yeah. What's in DNA? You could probably figure it out. DNA has the instructions for which everything is made in your little body. Okay. The helical structure is held together by hydrogen bonds. And the great thing about it, they're weak, right? So we can unzip it with DNA polymerase and go in there and transcribe it. Make a copy. Okay. And then we can make a single-stranded RNA molecule and send that out into the cytoplasm. And we can get this DNA translated. And we can make amino acids come together. And we can make the P word, protein. And we can utilize that protein inside the cell or get rid of it for use in some other location. And we'll obviously see that quite a bit as we start talking about communicating throughout the body. What does ribosomal RNA help to make? Anybody?
Ribosomes.
There you go. Remember ribosome? Looks like what, BB-8? It has a small component and it has a large component. And remember, spell it out. Okay. tRNA brings an individual amino acid to the ribosome here, so we can translate that message. Probably can't read that. Messenger RNA gets made by the DNA, by transcribing that DNA. Okay, we make a copy. That's what transcribe means. Make a copy of the DNA, single-stranded sucker, leaves through the nuclear pore, heads out into the cytoplasm, goes to a ribosome. Ribosome feeds that string of messenger RNA in between the two individual subunits of it. As it gets read through those two individual subunits of the RNA or of the ribosome structure, it yells at a tRNA to bring in individual amino acids so it can make an individual protein. And that's the translation part, right? And again, that happens out in the cytoplasm. Are we going to be talking about this later on in the semester? Yes. Okay. This is how a number of very different cells communicate and talk and make stuff with one another. So we'll be talking about these things a little bit, okay, within a little bit later in this unit, I believe, and definitely in the nervous system, okay. There are other similar RNA structures, and I will tell you this, okay. This right here, this is for cellular respiration, okay. So if you want to write your notes, cellular respiration, this is where we'll see these suckers, okay. These obviously are making energy for the cell, okay. They're energy carriers. They can also act as neurotransmitters as well, and I'm just going to put NT for neurotransmitters. So not only are they energy carriers, but they can help communicate. This is going to be probably the most important one of the three in terms of its ability to help cells communicate. We are going to see a number of hormones and neurotransmitters dock to specific receptors on the surface of a plasma membrane. And we are going to see a number of those communication methods tell the cell to produce cyclic AMP, which is what CAMP is, cyclic AMP. Cyclic AMP is going to tell the nucleus to start reading the DNA. Okay, what the hell does that mean? It's basically telling the cell to start making stuff. Okay. So in chapter 6, I believe, when we start talking about how cells communicate with one another, this is a major way that cells communicate with one another. Okay. I'll have a specific receptor on the surface of a cell. It'll communicate with a hormone or a neurotransmitter or something else, but those are the two major things. And it will start a cascade series of events inside the cell to ultimately produce cyclic AMP, which can enter into the nucleus, and the nucleus is told to start being read. Start reading that DNA. I need to make some messenger RNA so I can make a protein so this cell can now become active and start doing something. It's how you mount an immune response. It's how a virus can sometimes get in and make the cell do its bidding. It's how we make some other different secretions by cells, hormones from other cells. So this concept of cyclic AMP is something that we will see again and again and again. What is cyclic AMP? It's basically a subtype of nucleic acid RNA. Time to spare. Gosh, dang it, I'm good.